Well, hello, hello. It is Thursday night. Thursday means it's sketch session day, and I'm so glad you found your way here. I hope your day was awesome, and I hope that you're just dying and ready to get into your sketchbook pages, onto your drawing pages, and I hope you got your pencils ready to go because I have 4 beautiful portrait images for us to work from tonight. And as you know from the title already, the subject tonight will be how to capture an expressive portrait. So I will give you tips on how to set up your portrait right, how to capture the emotions by paying attention to the most expressive parts of the portrait, and then also, of course, how to use your tools if you want to underline that expression even more so. So I'm so glad to see Chris is here, Bill is here, and Roland is here. Awesome. So we will already have a really fun time. So if that sounds good to you, drawing expressions and thus, then you're in the right place. If you're finding this recording after the fact, after the live is over and you've never drawn with us before, welcome. My name is Carolyn and I'm the owner of Kira Studios, and that's where I teach classical drawing skills so artists can build a very solid footing to explore their creative voice from. And every Thursday we get together and we draw together for about an hour and we cycle different subject matters, and we always have a focus. And like that, I provide this place for you that you can report to every week. And it's almost like a coach is waiting for you with the training plan in hand, and all you have to do is show up with your pencils in hand and draw along. So I see it as part gym, where you strengthen your skills, and part playground, where you get to explore and have fun, and you're surrounded by others who are drawing along with you. So like that, the energy is not only on you, there's some others who are kind of pulling along the same direction. And as I said, we cycle through different subject matters. This week we're on portrait, but usually the next one would be animals, then inanimate things, and then figure would be other 3 that we pay attention to. All right, well, with that, I don't think I have anything else to say in terms, oh no, there is one more thing I wanted to say, especially if you're a newbie and you don't quite know yet how to get the most out of this. The best way to learn from these lessons is to put the stream on your biggest screen in the house, because I have the reference footage for us to draw from side by side with my drawing process. So the bigger your screen, the easier it'll be for you to do your drawings well. And I even enlarged the images for tonight so you can see the portraits really, really well. And then of course you draw along with us. You don't just kick back and kind of listen and watch, which is fine. You know, you'll learn a little something like that, but you really learn by drawing along with me, and you will hear me narrate what I'm thinking about and what I'm paying attention to, and that will give you little clues as you're working in real time, like, oh yeah, that's right, I need to check that in my drawing too. And like that, you really get the most out of the session. Okay, so let's dive in. What I want you to think about is that when you have a very expressive face in front of you, you don't just want to begin right away with the facial features. Yes, those are the most expressive parts, what the eyebrows and the eyes are doing, how the mouth is being positioned. That does carry a ton of the expression, but you'd be surprised how much of the expression is also carried in the simplicity of the head positioning. So for example, when you have your head just like this, as opposed to this, that already carries a very different emotional connotation. So rather than just blindly diving in and kind of just drawing your head position the way you always do, pay close attention. Well, is it leaning this way or that way, and how much so? And that already will carry a lot of the emotion. And you know this because if you just imagine just seeing somebody's silhouette and they're all slumped over, that silhouette looks very different as from somebody who's all bouncy and cheery, you know? So point number 1, pay attention to the head position and how that filters into the neck and shoulders as well. So you can support what's happening in the face with what's happening in the neck and shoulders as well. Now, when you have that, then the second point will be, of course, to set your portrait up structurally in a sound way. And if you've been drawing with me, I'm all about structure, and I know it might get a little bit annoying, but it is really that work that pays off the most. So what does that mean? It means you pay attention to where the center line is. It means that you pay attention to where the brow ridge is, how the nose and the mouth, how they line up. They should be parallel with the brows. So you don't want to have a bunch of different angles, like the brow angle like this and the eye angle like that. You want them all nice and parallel, accordingly to the perspective. And once you have that, then you can deviate them, because there's some expressions where like one mouth corner is up, right, and the other one is just in the normal position. But you first want to begin with the kind of neutral demarcations, and then you deviate from them and you adjust them to get to that expression. Point number 3, this is the easiest one, or like the most exciting one, is you pay attention to the most expressive elements of the face, which are eyebrows, eyes, and the lids. How much of the lids do you see? And then of course the mouth and the surrounding muscle areas and fat pads around the mouth and how they're getting stretched and squished. And the same goes for the forehead, if there are any wrinkles that appear because of the raising and lowering of the eyebrows. So especially with the eyes, here are a couple of things I want you to look for. First of all, pay attention to the direction that the irises and pupils are aiming or pointing at. So first of all, they're always, in most expressions, they're moving together. So both irises will be pointing in the same direction. And if you're looking to one way, you'll see a lot of the white of the eye on the other side. That shape is very useful in capturing the right expression. The other thing I want you to pay attention to is if the irises and pupils are pointing one way, rather than having a full circle, they're now becoming more oval. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute when I switch to the overhead camera, so you know exactly what I mean. Next, pay attention to how much of the eye opening is actually visible. If you have kind of a sleepy look, that open part of the eyeball will be very small, and the lid rim won't necessarily arc up the way that you usually expect it to. It might actually look like it's horizontal or even dipping down. And again, I'll have an image for you before we dive in. There was one more thing. Oh yeah, depending also, so not just like whether these lids are drooping down, it will affect how much of the upper lid is showing. And also, depending on what the brow is up to, if the brow is being lifted, the underbrow shape will change as well. So capturing what's happening with the eye expression is all about noticing the shape deviations. And of course, with the mouth, it's very similar. You want to pay attention to, are both mouth corners in alignment? Is one higher than the other? How wide open is the mouth? And so forth. The last point I wanted to make before we dive into the drawing part is that, and I'm not sure how much I will be able to demonstrate this tonight, we'll see. You can use your tools to then emphasize the expression of the face. So what I mean by that is this. If you have a pose where it's more of a pensive, somber look, you could emphasize that with a more delicate medium, like a very faint graphite, and it could almost become dreamlike. Or if you have a very powerful, almost like a violent expression, you can underline that or support that by picking a very powerful medium like a super dark charcoal pencil that has like a very strong impact on the page. So, or when you have a very cheerful expression, maybe that tempts you to use some color. So that's what I meant by using your tools to underline the expression. And the same goes also for your mark. So again, in the more pensive, somber expression, maybe rendering very carefully, very delicately, slowly, and kind of creating like a very fine gradation. And if you have that more violent pose, maybe have more strong marks that just are more erratic in the way they're applied. So again, I don't know how much of that I will be able to demonstrate tonight. We'll see. And but I did want to mention it up front. So I'm going to switch the camera. I'm going to show you the examples that I mentioned, and then we'll dive right into the into the drawing. Okay, so what I want to point out here is just how even in the most simplified way, you can already translate so many different emotions. And again, it's all in how the iris and pupil shapes are positioned in context to the rest of the eye, how much of the white of the eye is showing. Usually the more white of the eye that's showing, the more awake the person looks, like as compared to here, the more kind of sleepy, droopy, whatever look. When you have a real angry position, it squints the eyes closed too, and the white of the eye becomes smaller again. Notice also how the iris pupil duo, they're moving together, right? If the person's looking to the left, they're both at the left side of the shape. It feels odd if that's not being observed. So, and of course you can use little creases in between the wrinkles that happen. So, oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks for letting me know, Roland. I forgot to hit transition. Oh boy. So let me say that one more time. Sorry about that. Yeah, I know I forgot to push the button. I saw it on my screen, not over there. So what I meant to say is you want to pay attention to the iris and the pupils in context to the white of the eye here. Notice how much of the white of the eye is showing and how small the iris and pupil are in this example. If you have a more angry or a more sleepy look, that white of the eye becomes much smaller. That's what I was pointing out earlier. Eyes, or the pupils and irises, they move in tandem, right? Otherwise it looks weird. And then also notice how the brow in relationship to the eye, how that affects the expression. So here, lots of lift in between the two gives you that surprised expression. Here, the brow closing in very tightly onto the eyeball gives you that angry expression. So it's all about the distance between the brow and the eye, and the distance or the size of the white of the eye to the iris. The other thing that I mentioned up front was the curvature of the lid will be affected by the expression. So this is a neutral eye position right here. You have a regular arc this way. That's what we expect. But as artists, we know that our expectations, they can lead us into trouble, right? So we want to be prepared for when it looks different. So we might have something like this, either when it's more sleepy or sad looking. See how the shape of the lid, the rim of the lid, isn't curving up anymore. It's almost more horizontal, even like a little downward dip. And then it has a complete downward dip if the eye is really drooping closed. So I just wanted to kind of attune you to the fact that this lid rim will change. And so will, of course, then the distance in between the crease of the lid and the lid rim. The crease of the lid and the lid rim. Okay, so with that, let me just switch my paper. And we will do 15 minutes per portrait tonight, giving you several attempts. We'll never finish anything. That's not how we roll here. We just make quick decisions so we can improve our craft. All right, let me set my timer so I don't lose track of time. And here we go. So here we have this lovely surprised expression. And the first thing I'll pay attention to, as I said earlier, is just the head position. In this case, the head position is upright. So I always begin with a simplified guitar pick or egg-like shape, wide on the top, narrow at the bottom. And then, as I said, we want to anchor that with the neck onto the shoulders. And for these underdrawing parts, I'm using the side of my pencil because it gives me a soft mark. It gives me a faint mark, something that's erasable. And I go from there. So the second point I made is that you want to set yourself up right. So that means paying attention to the center line placement. Do I see more of one side of the face, more of the other side of the face, or is it equal? You can also look at the ear shapes. So usually, not usually, but in general, the side where you see the ear shape bigger is where you see more of the face. Then I need my facial feature foundation. So this is my brow ridge. Here is the base of the nose. And if I've done my job well, they should be equal. So from the hairline to the brow, brow to the base of the nose to the chin, they should be equal. Now, that is for a closed mouth face. Her mouth is open, her jaw's dropping down. So we need to be prepared that our lower portion of the face is probably going to be bigger than our hair to brow and brow to nose. Just a heads up. So it's good to know the norm, set up the norm, and then deviate from it once you understand what's happening. So here I'm building some major plane changes. And by the way, when I say base of the nose, I mean the part where the nose grows out of the face, not the tip of the nose. So where the highlight is on the nose, that's the tip of the nose. Get my foundation set up. So now you could start thinking even before you get into a portrait like this. So let's just say like this was a picture you came across someplace and you really wanted to make like a longer drawing out of this. You just love the expression so much. Before you even do any of what I'm just doing, you'd spend a minute thinking about, okay, like what kind of expression is this to me? Is this an expression of surprise? What kind of a surprise? Is it a shocked surprise? Is it a excited surprise? Is it a happy surprise? Is it a being scared surprise? And whatever your answer comes back as, then think about, okay, how could I support that with the drawing materials I have in my drawing desk? And there is really, not only one answer to what you should pick, but it's a starting point for your exploration. Okay, so you see how I had my brow line, my eye line, my nose line, and then here is kind of where my mouth line was. Now I still use this as my starting off point for the corners of the mouth. The corners of the mouth, like if you watch the mouth lesson, and we talked about that wire that's at the middle of the mouth, the corners of the mouth are holding that wire. And then I deviate up and down from it. And I'm paying close attention to what distance is in between the nose and the rim of the upper lip. I'm keeping it light. I don't want to commit too quickly. And I do the same for the lower lip. I'm paying attention to the space in between the edge of the lower lip and the chin dome crease, and then the chin dome. And then I pause and see if that's heading in the right direction. Is that something that I'm feeling good about? And if it is, then I'm coming back up here now and I'm starting to pay attention to what's happening in the eye area. Where's my eraser? Like these dried up needed erasers. Oh, there it is. There's one that's workable. So now that I know where I'm going to place my brow, I'm going to take out this kind of underlying drawing. And I'm paying attention to how does the brow arc up? How does it fall back down? And make sure that they still match up. And again, I don't want to overcommit yet. This is just the lay-in. Like it's that direction, that angle right. I'm paying attention, and I know it's in shadow, but I'm doing my best to pay attention between the brow and the lid crease. So I call that the underbrow. What kind of shape do I get there? And then her eyes are wide open. So I need to make sure I give her that big opening to the eye shape. And then once I have one eye, I try and translate it over to the other side. So it looks like they belong together. So again, paying attention to the arc of the lid. It's a regular arc. I'm paying attention to how much of the white of the eye is exposed. And there's a she's slightly looking over to the right side. So by us paying attention to the white of the eye here, we're making that possible. Again, paying attention to the space between the lid crease and the lid rim. And then I can mask that in. And I get into the rest of the face. So this is a good beginning for capturing this expression. I'm dealing with the structure of the nose a little bit. Nose is not very expressive. Not like it's completely unexpressive, but it's not the drama queen of this play. You want to pay attention to the corners of the mouth, how they line up to the eyes. Like if I was to draw a straight line up, how would they intersect the iris? And then at that point, I'm starting to pay attention to the shadow patterns. So I have my structure laid in. Here's the cast shadow of the nose, meeting the form shadow of the cheek here. Remember that there is the underlid to the eye. That's often something we like to forget about. Just adding a little bit of local value to her hair here. I haven't paid attention to the underlid on this side yet. So you see, now that I have everything in place, I can keep working on values and lock things in more. So it doesn't, when you work in that way, for a long time, it doesn't look like much. You know, it's just like, yeah, that just looks like a messy drawing and there's nothing happening. But it's because you know that you have a plan. So it's not like you're gonna leave your drawing in this kind of dissatisfying state. You're gonna keep working over it. Okay, so that was the first 15 minutes. And so the next thing, because it is a practice and not an art production session, the next thing I would do is actually take a minute or after the session is over and then compare, okay, what did I capture well? Is it enough of a surprise? What's irking me about this drawing? And then I would either make corrections right then and there or just kind of file it away in my memory for the next time around. Okay, so let me get the next drawing or the next image up. Oops, gotta change my my paper. So here, this would be an example where you have like this lighter, airier quality to the expression. And so you could, if you have it, like use a lighter pencil. So let's begin with the head position. It's leaning. And then the neck is countering it. So in this case, the neck is really beautifully kind of supporting emotionally the expression. So once I have this head position, I then start to set up the structure, paying attention to the center line. How much do I see here? How much do I see there? And we're looking up at her, or like she's tilting her chin up, and therefore these lines that we use for the brow, for the nose, and the mouth, they'll be arcing up. So think about rubber bands snapping around an egg. If you tilt that egg, that rubber band is going to arc up. So here's our cheek bone structure. Eyes. And I'm kind of guesstimating with the placement of the nose. Kind of letting my intuition guide my hand, but not just like blindly. I am triangulating. So I'm comparing. So if this is the brow and here are the eyes, then here's the tip of the nose. So I'm kind of comparing the distances, making sure that they relate to each other. So here's the length of the nose, fanning out into the glabella. Then we stepping down into the eye socket. So I always build my structure first. So even, let's say I have a commission drawing, a portrait, and it's gonna have a pretty end result, or like I'm aiming for a pretty end result, I'm still going to go through my structural underdrawing. It's not something that I try to get away from one day. It's like, it's really useful, you know? Under that nose block, we have the dental mound. That kind of dome sitting partially under the nose. And again, I'm paying attention to the corners of the mouth. Where, like height-wise, where are they in relationship to the brow arc, the eye arc, the nose arc? So I'm not beginning with the lip, I'm beginning with the angle that the mouth corners are sitting on. And I'm seeing how the mouth corners aligns up to place that well. So like right now, my drawing kind of looks like a Herman Munster drawing. But again, I know this is, I'm not leaving it like that. So I think we get ourselves into trouble if we get too judgmental too soon in the process. Paying attention to how big is the gap in between the base of the nose and the top rim of the lips. Lightly sketching that in. And of course, the part of the lip that's further away from us is shorter. The part of the lip that's closer to us is longer. So in this situation too, her mouth is open. So, you know, usually if you use the Loomis method, you go hairline to brow is equal to brow to nose is equal to nose to chin. But of course that gets affected once the mouth gets opened up. So you begin with the general, the universal model, and then you deviate from it. Pay attention to the distance between lip and chin crease. Put your chin dome in and start to link everything up and see where you're at. And if your proportions are totally wacky, then that's where you stop and you reposition things without making a big drama out of it. It's just, you know, it's just what we do. We gotta be honest with ourselves about how much work we're putting into our drawing skills, you know? Like if you're drawing every single day for 8 hours, then yeah, you know, you probably have good reasons to expect pretty good outcomes. But if you're only drawing like once a week for an hour, which is better than nothing, then you just want to keep your expectations in check and work from there. And of course, if you have the choice between drawing 1 hour a week or not at all, of course you're going to take that hour, right? Like don't fall into that perfectionism trap, like, oh, I only have 20 minutes today that I can draw. That's not enough. I'm not going to draw. If you read Stephen Pressfield, you know that that's resistance talking. If you don't know who Stephen Pressfield is, you got to look that man up. He wrote a couple of books. He wrote many books, but a couple on creativity and the creative process. One of them is called Turning Pro. The other one is called The War of Art. And he's talking about how we create is like the main force that we are up against is resistance, and resistance shows up in all kinds of ways. It shows up in procrastination. It shows up in perfectionism. It shows up in trying to get validated through others. So many ways. So if I don't know how I got on this tangent, but like if you are often telling yourself, oh, I can't possibly draw today because XYZ, check in with yourself if that's maybe resistance talking. Like resistance is really shisty, and it's trying to keep you from doing scary stuff. Like getting better at drawing the scary stuff. It might make you different. It might separate you from the tribe. And like biologically, like our system, like our biology does not like being different from the tribe. So it's not like because we're nutty, it's just, you know, our body and our mind, they're trying to keep us safe. They're trying to keep us integrated into the tribe. Okay, so at this point, I have my structure, feeling all right about it. Nothing seems like it's drastically out of place. So now I'm starting to pay attention to my expressive features. So I'm paying attention to the brow, the angle, and the length. Just going up and over. I think I made her too broad in that brow area. Let me erase that out. There's something funky happening over here. It's not quite right. Well, let's see. Paying attention to the eye alignment. So if I connected eye corner on the right eye to eye corner on the left eye, what angle am I getting here? And now you can even draw that in to make sure your eyes won't look like they don't belong to each other. And so here you see how the lower lid is arcing up. Not very strongly, but it is something to pay attention to. So here, because it's so dark, it's hard to see what the distance is between the lid crease and the lid rim. So I'm kind of making that up. Okay, under lid is here. Under lid shows up over here as well. So again, lining them up. And so here this is a beautiful example where you can tell that the iris is now not a perfect circle anymore. So if the person is looking at us straight on, the iris is a perfect circle. But she is looking up and over. Whenever you see a circle from a different angle, it becomes foreshortened into an ellipse. Again, pay attention to the white of the eye. Okay, let's move further down. Trace my way back down the nose. I think I might have to make that slightly bigger. We'll see. Whenever you draw the nostril, remind yourself why it exists. It's contingent on the ball of the nose and the septum. Septum is one of the walls for the nostril. So just how we carry the lines for the eyes over, you can carry the same over for the nostrils. So the base of the nostril here, carry that over to that side so it feels like they belong together. Okay. Paying attention to the swoop, the mouth, the lip here, open mouth corner. Again, ideally these mouth corners will be the same or they will be parallel to what's happening with the other angles. And anytime when your structure of the portrait is funky, it's usually because of those angles not being right. Okay, narrow here, and it becomes more plump towards the center. This is where we pick the shadow up to. get that shadow down outside. Oh, that was really short. Like I got sidetracked here. Okay, and then again, whether I do it right this moment or after the whole session, I would again compare, all right, this to the photo. Do I feel like I captured the expression? What would I change? Is it a structural thing that I would change? Is it more an expressive thing that's in the features that I would change? So don't waste a good practice session by not paying attention to what worked and what didn't. Okay, let's get to the next photo. Let's see. Here, a more pensive pose again. Let me set the timer. So again, our head position is slightly at an angle. So I begin with that. And then I pay attention to, so this swoop that you see me draw right here, it's kind of covered up by her hand. It's the sternocleidomastoid muscle, that kind of diagonal long muscle that leads to the pit of the neck. It's a really good rhythm to use for placing the neck. Okay, so now that I have the big picture here, I get the rest of the structure, meaning center line and feature foundation lines. The question I always ask myself, so I'm usually beginning at the brow line, right? So I'm asking myself, if this was an egg, like if her head was an egg, and I snapped a rubber band around where the brow line is, would I see that rubber band arc like this? Would it be a straight rubber band, or would it be arcing down? And that helps me establish the perspective. It gives the viewer a sense if we're looking up at her, down at her, what she's doing with the head tilt. So again, Loomis method wise, hairline to brow equals brow to base of nose equals base of nose to chin. And in this case, that might actually hold up because her mouth is closed. So you can take this distance with your pencil like this. See if it's equal. See if it's equal. So I can bring my nose up a little bit. So let's build some structure. I got the eye socket. Let's build the nose. Here again, that's the glabella, connecting the nose into the eye socket. So here, this is an important plane, establishes the height of the eye socket. And then here, even though it's not going to stay in, I still want to get a sense for how big is the eyeball, because we'll stretch the lids over that eyeball. Even for the eye on the other side. So in true drawing, not just copying, we always draw as if we can see through things. We can draw the things we cannot see, but the things that we understand, and we combine it. So it's a combination, observation with what we understand. You mush them up together and let them influence each other. And like that, hopefully you end up with a good result. That it didn't feel like you're just bound to the photo reference. Okay, so I got my dental mound placed. I got my nose box, my eye socket. Let me place that lip line. So again, I begin with a separation in between the lips. And I'm really interested in the mouth corner and how it aligns with the eyes. And so here we have a case where the lids, I know I jumped up back to the eyes, the lids are curving down. Like I said earlier in the intro, they're not completely closed. And see how now it exposes all that lid real estate and all that underbrow. Let me take out some of that underdrawing. And then her brow is very relaxed. Don't get too excited about brows. As in, like, don't go like crazy with how dark you put them in. Because especially with her, for example, and with a lot of other people, you can see skin through the brow. Okay, and so now that I have one eye, I try and do the other side right away. So I'm imagining if I could see through the nose, where would that tear duct be? I may not draw it. I'm kind of visually letting my pencil think about it. So I have to say this every single time we draw together, because I don't want you to leave feeling disappointed or frustrated in yourself or in what was being presented. These sketch sessions, they're practice sessions. We're not making art here. So if you come to these sessions with the expectations that by the end of them you'll have a beautiful drawing, or that I have a beautiful drawing by the end of them, sometimes it'll happen. And if it does, we'll celebrate and like pop a bottle of champagne. But most of the times, you know, they'll just be, I don't know, like sweaty sit-up drawings where it's nothing that you're going to put into a frame. It's nothing that you're going to hang on the wall. It's just something to strengthen your skills. And because we only have 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes for whatever it is we were drawing, we always have these short time frames. It's so we have a chance to make many, many claims. When I make a mark on the page, I claim this is how it is. And the more you make these claims, the better you get in making them confidently. If you only always allow yourself 2 hours, 4 hours for a portrait drawing, for a figure drawing, then you probably will get pretty good at polishing your drawings. but you might not be building that confidence and that, yeah, I guess confidence is the best word, the confidence in your own ability to capture something decisively. So that's what my goal is for these sketch sessions, to build that decisiveness muscle in you. And I know it's not glamorous work. A lot of artists are not cut out for it. They need that instant gratification of like, oh yeah, this is a beautiful piece of art. I can impress my friends with it. But again, you're not doing this out in public. You're in the privacy of your own home. So if your drawings don't end up that great, you don't have to share them with anybody. I always ask to see them. You can send me a DM with your images because I just want to cheer you on. I want to kind of celebrate the fact that you actually do go through the hard work. But you know, nobody else needs to know. Like, I celebrate every shitty drawing that comes my way, whether it's my own or somebody else's, because it meant somebody or me sat down and paid attention to something. And I think that's what's so special about art. And we need more of it. and the model in this picture is like, you don't say, right? That's the expression of the day. And again, the best way to still feel good about the session is then at the end to take stock of your attempts. What worked out good? What didn't work out so well? And the more you can put words to that, the more you'll improve. Because that's what teachers do. They tell you what's not working. And, you know, usually it's too uncomfortable to do it ourselves. And so we pay a teacher. So in this pose, not only is her neck and her shoulder kind of reinforcing the mood and the emotion of the pose, but also her hand. Probably running out of time, so I don't think I'll be able to put the hand in, but I mean, that's definitely an element, right? So if you had more time, you want to spend some time on getting that hand placed well. There is a hand practice session on this channel. So if you want to get better at drawing hands, you can watch that. So as the upper lip is kind of curving in, so you want to think about the lips in terms of parts of cylinders, like, or a segment of a cylinder. So the lip is kind of tucking under towards that crease, and as it's tucking under, it kind of rolls into shadow. So that's why you see that darker line. But you don't just want to draw a dark line in between the lips. You want to kind of think about it as being a gradation. Oops. Let's finish this out here. So you can have a kind of crisper edge here where the edge of the lip is, but then as you grade it up, this should be a softer edge. And I know I didn't have a lot of time to do that, but same goes here. This rolls away. All right, so last image of the evening. I like that. Okay, let me change my paper. Set the timer. Here we go, last 15 minutes. Begin with the head tilt. So there's a slight left tilt. Not huge, but it's there. You definitely want to grab it. And because that very subtle head tilt, the neck has a curved gesture to it. Now pay attention to the shoulder edge. What I recommend is paying attention to that negative space in between the cheek, the neck, and the shoulder, because notice how it's different. On this side, it's short here, it's long here. And again, it doesn't seem like much, but that shape difference is part of the emotional carrier. Again, remember silhouettes. You can tell emotion from silhouettes. And what are silhouettes but shapes? So drawing is all about noticing angles and shapes, distances. Not much more than that. I mean, tones, of course. That's what you're into. Oop. Okay, so I got my big shapes. I'm adding now my structural lines. I'm noticing I'm not seeing a lot of the left side. I'm mainly seeing the right side. So I'm placing my center line accordingly. Eyeline, nose. And again, at this point, I'm just drawing from the gut and how to place these lines, and then I'll double check on them. Okay, so again, at this point, I'm not thinking about her puckering her lips at all. I'm looking at the corners of their mouth and the distance from the bottom of her nose, corner of the mouth, bottom of her chin. It's, I think, a little bit closer to the nose than it is to the chin. So that's all I'm interested in at that point. Take out that center line if it bugs you. And then move on with building my structure. So you see those beautiful shadows on her temple bone area. So that's a plane change, forehead to side of the head. Here along the cheek, it's a plane change between front of the face, side of the face. And I like to build my nose from the base up. There's nobody policing you saying you have to do that. It's just, it works for me because I like figuring out, okay, if this is the base of the nose and here's the tip of the nose, here's how I see the underplane. And once I have that, I then lead it up. Length of the nose. And then I fan out to the glabella. And so because of that puckered mouth and the furrowed brow, we'll have to deal with the wrinkles that happen, but it's not the first thing I do. So remember, structure first, then deviations. I'm going to place the eyeballs, which always looks funny, right? Make them surprisingly big. Okay, so now at this point, I'm checking brow to nose to mouth that this is parallel. Like she's not pulling one of her mouth corners up or down. So it's especially important to then capture that. And then I can continue. So let's work on the eyes first. So let's deal with the brow. So the brows here are coming down. So the center segment of the brow is coming down and then it's straight. Very different from all the other brows we've drawn so far tonight. And making sure that they line up though. Okay. And I get to the eyes. Giving myself a little bit of a hand down to the eye. Goes up. Here's the rim of the eye, and then the lid crease is really close. I also have, we did a sketch session just focusing on eyes. So it's really, if you haven't reviewed the eyes in a while, go check that out. It'll remind you, or it'll point out all the different elements of the eyes, especially the ones that we forget about, like the underbrow and the lid crease, the underlid. Those are parts of the eye that we mostly forget about because it's not something we pay attention to in everyday life. So I'm not, in this expression, I'm not arcing the lid perfectly like a rainbow. See how there's like a little bit of a downward dip here. And that's going to echo this crease, and it's going to echo what's happening with the underbrow kind of pushing down on the eye here. Paying attention to the shape of the white of the eye here. Tendency, most people's tendency is to make eyes too big because they're the most meaningful part of a person. That's how we connect with each other. And so if something is meaningful to us emotionally, we want to make it big. If you look at medieval artwork, the most important person is the biggest person in the painting. Okay, under lid here. Under lid here. The lids have thickness. So if you're drawing big enough, your pencil is pointy enough, and you have time enough, then that's something to indicate there's a thickness to those parts. Again, looking at the distance between the lid crease and the rim of the lid. This is a tongue twister, becoming a tongue twister here. Ball of the nose. Try to adjust the length of my nose a little bit, and I think it's still a little bit short. Again, aligning the tops of the nostrils with each other, top edges of the nostrils, just how you're aligning the eyes with each other. Okay, now for the challenge. It's gonna be that puckered mouth. Okay, let me take this out. So sometimes it happens that your underdrawing has to kind of budge the current trends of your drawing. So I think I made my eye just a little bit too big, and therefore everything needs to be shifted down a little bit. It can be done. Not the end of the world. So again, I'm trying to inch my way to the full expression, paying attention to the corner of the mouth and how it aligns with the eye. Keeping that overall alignment strong. Okay, let's bring it in just a smidge. Okay, now I'm gonna go for the shape. Again, far side is smaller than the close side. Always remember that simple perspective applies to the face as it does to any outdoor elements like houses and train tracks and whatnot. Get that lower lip. So here that upper lip is rolling into shadow as it goes close to the partition. Pay attention to the part underneath the lower lip. How small is the distance until you get to the chin dome here? So with expressions, they're particularly unforgiving. So if you know, if you later on lean back and you zoom out and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I looking at here? Don't be too hard on yourself. Like, they're a challenge. That's why we practice them. Okay, so got the pucker. I'm gonna go back up here before I'm gonna run out of time because I have not dealt with the furrow in the brow. So she doesn't have a strong wrinkle, so I wanna be careful not to just draw a fat line, a fat black line, because they easily start looking drawn on, and if they're too dark, they'll make her look really old. And so I use the side of my pencil for this to get more of a tone rather than a line. And my timer just went off, but I do want to put in that shadow real quick, and then we'll call it a night. Just shade that stuff in. And if you have questions before we hop off, put them in the chat now, because there is a delay. If you wanted to ask something, I want to make sure that you have a chance to do so, that I'll actually read it. So I'm loving my pencil combination tonight. I am working with a, what is it called? Cretacolor Nero. This is a medium grade, and I'm still on my bond paper. They're really playing nicely tonight with each other. Not always the case. Just want to finish this up. Get that nose shadow in. Oh, so this goes here. Oh, I see, it goes all the way up. Weird. Okay, so I'll probably keep fiddling with this after the stream is over. If you want to see the result, hop onto Instagram. But you know, close enough. I do feel like I like what happened with the mouth. It's maybe not exactly what I see, but it's pretty close. And I'm gonna keep working on this after the fact. So let me just transition over real quick. All right, there we go. So I hope you got some good practice time in. Again, the results aren't all that great. Don't worry about it. You paid your dues. You showed up. You drew, and hopefully you became conscious of a couple of things that you can, from here on out, pay more attention to. So again, let's recap what we learned. We learned that to capture expressions, it's not all in the features, it's also in the head and body position. So pay attention to the head position, the neck, and the shoulders. With the shoulders, pay attention to that negative space being created in between jaw, neck, and shoulders. That's the biggest foundation. Second, you get into the structure. You establish the norm for a head. And then once you have the norm, meaning like your brow ridge, your base of the nose, the placement of the separation between the lips, once you have your plane changes, then you deviate from it. And again, with expressions, it's really all about the corners of the mouth, corner of the eyes, what angles are being created there, and do they feel like they belong to each other. Once you have those two things, then you get to play with the fun parts. You get to pay attention to the most expressive elements, which are eyebrows, eyes, and the mouth. And especially around the eye, you want to pay attention to how much of the white of the eye am I seeing? How much of the lid, the exposed part of the lid am I seeing? How much of the underbrow am I seeing? And is the arc of the lid rim truly an arc, like a rainbow arc? Or is it actually more flat? Or is it even arcing down the other way? So those are really important about the eyes. And also, of course, make sure that your irises are pointing in the same directions, unless you have a cross-eyed person with an eye that's kind of wandering off into a different direction. But most people, they'll be pointing in the same direction. And when they do point off to the side, remember that the shape of your iris is not a perfect circle anymore. It now will foreshorten into an ellipse. However drastic the eye direction is, the more drastic or the more narrow your ellipse will be. I think that was everything. Oh yeah, and then the last thing, which I didn't explore too much in the stream, but I did want to make you aware of it, is you can choose tools to underline the mood of the portrait, and you can adapt your mark making to the expression on the model's face as well. So more violent expressions, darker, more abrupt marks, and the other way around for more subtle or more happy expressions. All right, I hope you got something out of that. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you want to share your work with me, which I always love to see what you've been practicing, tag me on Instagram. You don't have to make it public. You can just send me a DM over there. I'm at Kira Studios, and I love cheering you on for your attempts. Next week, we'll be back with animals. If you have requests, let me know. If you want to know what we'll be focusing on, get yourself on my email list. I will let you know there what's coming down and what focus we'll be having. And while you sign up, you get to be part of a free figure drawing mini course, or you can opt in for a pen and ink tool guide or for a workbook that will help you to improve your drawings with 3 simple questions. And the links for that are below this video. All right. I don't see any questions in the chat. I'm so glad you were here with me. I hope you had a fun evening, and I'll see you next time. See ya.